is May 19th, 2022. It is 7:32 p.m. Tracy, could I ask you for a roll call?
Okay. Director Boyd?
Here.
Director Decker?
Here.
Director Harvey?
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
I'm present.
Okay, all present and accounted for. For my president's statement, I'm just going to note that we've been talking about drought for quite some time. Of course, the district is still very well prepared, and our resources are a little more secure than some of our neighbors, but the governor is talking about instituting restrictions statewide, and so that may bring some restrictions on everybody, but we'll keep a careful eye out and pass the word along as we learn more. Do we have any oral comments for items that are not on the agenda? I see a hand from Greg. Greg, go ahead.
Thanks, Scott. Just three quick things, and then I'm going to take off. As some of you know, I'm dealing with some stuff here. The first is I continue to pursue the missing 3.7 million gallons a day flow that almost wiped out the Sam electrical plant on December 13th. I've had meetings with John Dowdy. He's invited me to meet with his engineer who prepared a report that says they couldn't have contributed more than 7.7 million gallons a day when I'll call it the default flow, the unexplained flow coming into the plant, which we believe was all coming from Half Moon Bay, was 12. So there's, what's that? 7.7, that's 4.3 million gallons a day missing. Did I do that wrong? So what I really need to do a good job is a professional engineer to go with me to that meeting. I haven't found one yet. I may go anyway, but I just continue to pursue the vulnerability of the sand plant due to the lack of wet weather storage south of that plant. I seem to be on good terms with John Dowdy. I hope we'll be collaborative going forward. Speaking of which, a vendor who does water reclamation systems, somewhat bespoke apparently, but using standard tools and machinery, had contacted me. I forwarded it to members of all the major water and sewer boards in the area in case we do get around to doing water reclamation, which could, by the way, include stormwater, just something long-term you might be interested in. At least one of you got a copy. And then finally, I'm not going to stay for the budget thing because I attended the finance committee meeting. I have no problem with what you're doing. I think a rate increase isn't merited at this moment, but you are aware that I'm going to be doing an article on the fiscal sustainability of public works and a survey. And so I would hope that the board would entertain hearing from me at a finance committee meeting or a board meeting in late June or August sometime to display my methodology and findings. And that might then be of interest to you in considering your own fiscal sustainability. Sure. And that's it. The MCC update. I mean, you can see people are concerned about pollution lead at the airport, so forth. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Greg. Okay.
Thank you. Hopefully people, oops, I don't know how to make this show up. All right, so it doesn't show up. We all received a flyer with pictures of Golden Hills, a flooded road, and smoke coming up over the mountain from the CZU fire in 2020. And it says drought, wildfire, and sea level rise are the new normal. And it goes on, it is a very expensive production sent to every box holder and probably mailbox. And they want to hear from you. They want you to visit smcpreparedness.org to take an online survey. This is for a new tax the county is proposing for one shoreline, which leaves out special districts to take care of drought, wildfire, and sea level rise. And the new tax will be an annual tax of 5 cents per square foot of every structure in the county. Every structure. Now, in this time of 40-year high inflation, and all the $7 a gallon gas prices, and food and milk prices going up and coffee prices, everything else, they want to add another tax. If you think it's a good idea, please fill it out and go to smcpreparedness.org. I'll send pictures of this to Clemens. Maybe he can put it on our website. Everyone should have received it, but in this time of all of these expensive campaign flyers that are coming out, it looked like several that I've already gotten from Board of Supervisor candidates and other candidates. So it could have just been flipped into the trash if you didn't look at it carefully. It is about a new tax, and it means even your garage, your workshops, sheds, everything. I think even parking garages. 5 cents a square foot, it adds up to quite a bit. If you're in a house, a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot house, it adds a large chunk to your tax bill. And if you're in a larger house than that, it might even be higher than our water service charge. And they're not making any promises on who's managing this money or where it's going.
I would like to add that usually all of this goes to Bayside.
We can be pretty sure.
So vote no.
Could I piggyback on that, what Catherine just said?
Oh, please.
So this started as about a $25,000 no bid consulting contract a year and a half ago by the county to explore what could be done to raise money. It turned into a $660,000 no bid consulting contract, and then into an $880,000 no bid consulting contract. This firm has flagged for the county that discussion of sea level rise is not going to get the voters scared enough to vote for the tax, but wildfire would. Hence the messaging you're seeing today. I will not comment on the merits of the case and the need for more money at this time, but the process has been not what I would consider above board. A no bid contract that grows and grows and grows doesn't seem right to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg.
All right. Do we have any other public comment for matters not on the agenda? If we don't, let's move on to the consent agenda. Does any board member wish to pull anything for consideration? If not, can I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
I'll second.
I'm going to give it to Rick and Peter, the motion and the second to approve the consent agenda. Tracy, if we could have a roll call, please.
Okay. Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Lohman,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda is approved 5-0. New business item 1, review and possible action concerning remote meetings during emergency conditions under Government Code Section 54953 of the Brown Act.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. This is the usual item that we have up since about 6 months or so. So this item allows us to hold this meeting via Zoom or any subsequent meeting we would have this month. We don't have any meetings planned, however. I think it's pretty clear that this time around with Omicron and what's going on out there, it makes sense to stay remote. So we're going to give the board, of course, every month an option to discuss how to move forward with these board meetings. Recommendation is today to adopt the resolution that authorizes our remote teleconference meetings. Thank you.
So moved with a comment.
So what we have in front of us is a recommendation to adopt the resolution. So Catherine, is that your motion to approve to adopt the resolution?
And my comment is I have been notified today and yesterday that I may have been exposed to 2 cases of COVID.
Ooh.
Now, one of the questions I have is, since I was at one place it happened was at the legislative conference I had in Sacramento, If it were necessary, do I get workers' comp and 10 days off?
I thought you have always off, Catherine.
I'm always on.
I'm sorry to hear, Catherine. I would add that in the past 2 weeks, I personally know more people who have had breakthrough cases than all of the cases I've heard of in the previous 2 years. And it's just astonishing how many people, and some of them are getting very sick, even though they're fully vaccinated and boosted. So I appreciate as a public safety agency that we're doing what we can to really try to keep everybody safe.
Did everybody get their free testing kits?
I would like to add that probably 20 people we know have COVID.
Oh.
I will add that one of the people I know who who may have it is going down to Ted Adcock Center for a test tomorrow. And he can also get the one of the antiviral vaccines. But you do need to be careful of those. There are allergies, and this particular one that they're giving at Ted Adcock can have rebound COVID. So,
Geez, Rick, I don't think I know 20 people.
We're including book clubs, schools. You know, everybody's sick, and it's spreading.
Yeah.
So we are like the highest ranked county in California or something like that. So
we know the truth, Jim. You know 20,000 people, because every time we talk about people, you're like, oh yeah, no, I know them. I don't think I know anybody who knows more people than you do, Jim. All right. Well, we have a motion from Catherine. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry. Was that Rick?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution that's in front of us, next in order. Tracy, could we have a roll call, please?
Okay. Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Decker?
Aye.
Director Harvey?
Aye.
Director Lohman?
Yes.
Director Slater Carter?
yes.
All right, the resolution is adopted 5-0. Let me just add, I really appreciate, I've seen very deliberate efforts, people trying very hard to keep themselves and others safe. And just keep that up. I really appreciate what I see and mindfulness about that.
Catherine, your hand is still up. So.
Oh,
You just want to be first in the line. I know.
yeah, always.
Always first.
And I apologize, my agenda just blinked into non-existence. Okay, now item 2, review and possible action concerning the 2022-2023 draft water and sewer budget.
Yeah, thanks. So this is the second time that the board is looking at our budget, our draft budget. This is still in draft form. We're not asking the board to approve it at this time. We're going to bring it back most likely at the June 2nd meeting for final approval. And also the Finance Committee met earlier this month and reviewed this budget. The budget is since about a decade in pretty much the same form. So our chart of accounts are pretty consistent. The way we structure this budget every year is consistent. So I know that most or that the board members are understanding what we're here doing, and anyone like Greg who has interest in this understands what we're doing. So if there's anyone that has any questions about the budget and doesn't understand a number in there, feel free to contact us anytime. We're happy to talk about it and explain if it is not already clear what the numbers mean. Usually I take the highlights from Peter and leave him with the bits. I'm not going to do that. Peter, you can just rattle down.
Oh.
And to your question, yes, let's talk EREF, please. Yeah.
Thank you. That was something that came up at the Ledge Conference, and I will be talking about that later.
I'm afraid your information may be old because it's my understanding that what we're going to talk about came out on Tuesday. and was only reviewed just now by CSDA. So we're just getting comments now from CSDA.
Good. Well, I hope there are changes, because what they were talking about on Tuesday was bad news.
That's what we're thinking still. Yes. So yeah, Peter, just if you can just take it away and
Very good.
maybe share the budget on screen and just tell us what the important items are.
Am I okay to? I would like to take over and share my screen, if you please.
Yes, it should be. You should
Very
be
good.
able
I
to.
have it. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. So as Clement said, the view in which you've had it has remained consistent for the last, they said close to about a decade now, and the methodology has remained consistent as well. The couple of years here and there with rotating members of the finance committee, and the changes has come around the discussion of ERAF. Consistently, and it's been a number that's been going up for about a decade as well, about $350,000. This past year, it's $380,000. The next year, it's projected to go up to $400,000. And I don't feel like, well, let's not skip ahead. It'll be the very next highlight item that I have here. Okay. So like I said, we won't skip too far ahead, but the highlights going over from page 1, sewer service charges, 6.41% increase. That is including a 9% rate increase. This is the last year of the rate increase that was adopted for a 3-year time period. Okay, so based on the flow for the wet weather months, and Tracy inputting the rate and working with a consultant and the program, we come up with our figures. So $3.7 million of collections expected next year for sewer service charges. Property tax, we've budgeted flat. I thought about this, and in the final version that you guys will see in 2 weeks, this may change. I'll have to speak with Clemens about it. But as of right now, it's flat based on actual property taxes. We do not, and we have not budgeted for ERAF collections for the last, I want to believe, 3 years. And that's because of kind of what we're experiencing now. There is the discussion that those will go away. The state has come out and said the VLF, vehicle license fee revenues, they are expecting a major shortfall, and they're expecting to use ERAF funds to fill that gap. Currently, Clemens and I have been sorting through kind of differing reports of what that means for San Mateo County. Folks from the county have come out, and cities have said that what will happen is that the city or the county and cities will basically have the amount that they've received for 21-22 frozen for the next number of years, whereas special districts will have the money completely eliminated. CSDA has taken a different stance. Clemens and I will be attending a meeting with county leadership tomorrow. They've had a number of these where basically they've said that the current omnibus with the LAO, the legislation action office there, that this was on the chopping block. So they've seen it. The big difference right now, I said, is it just a reformulation of how the funds are distributed, which is what CSDA stance is, or are they completely gone? So that's the big part there. But for Montara Water and Sanitary District, we've never depended on those funds from a budgeting aspect. Yeah, they've always, if they're there, wonderful. They're of course going to help. But when we prepare for the upcoming fiscal year, we do not take those into account. Okay. And so this is important because I said what we have here, and I'm going to kind of skip to the bottom to kind of show you guys quickly, is this is a big deal down here. You see my cursor. Typically, this is what it looks like as far as the expectation that we're going to pull from reserves to fund, and it's mainly in the area of capital improvement. As you see here, operational revenues are expected to take care of operational expenditures. It's in the other pieces that we typically do not have the funds and we pull from our reserves. That's the way we budget. We have the reserve, so we feel confident in this. This year, we are budgeting to where we actually are budgeting for a small surplus, $40,000, which is, like I said, we haven't seen this in a number of years. And there are a number of factors that go into that, which I said, the big piece here, rate increase, $223,000 of additional funds. What you'll see down here is basically, it basically keeps pace with what we're expecting for the increases. So the major piece here is personnel. COLA, which we calculated April to April, came out to be 5%. This was with Bay Area CPI for all categories. 5% from April to April. This came out earlier this week, so we were able to fill that piece in. This is also expecting a 2.5% merit increase for all eligible staff, and currently all staff are eligible. Nobody is at step 10 at this point. Okay, so the other big piece with personnel is going to be the inclusion of a part-time admin person, split 50-50, as you guys already know more than likely, and anybody can attest to, the gals downstairs are very busy with a lot of, mainly in the area of permits, but with the current work conditions and being in there, they've been stretched for a number of years. So Clemens has seen this and would like to include the position for a part-time, not necessarily a temp, but the person has not quite been decided, but there are ideas as far as who they would like to use, but basically somebody to relieve some of the workload from Tracy, who takes on a lot. So that's a big piece there. You'll see the numbers as far as how that works out further on in the presentation, but that's the big piece there.
You have an insider.
Is $25,000 for an additional admin person. Scrolling down, Sam, yes, $147,000 of increased assessments coming from Sam. The major decrease here for all other accounts, $46,300. Last year, we anticipated the election fees or the cost of having an election based on recent ruling as far as the lines for the district and having to go through election. That didn't happen as not expected to happen in this next coming fiscal year, possibly in the future. So that piece came out. Okay. Other than that, we'll get to capital improvement further on. Connection fees are flat. So overall, bottom line now, positive operations and capital and financing. So $40,000. Yeah, it's always interesting having the way these come together, because we're often missing some pieces, but we kind of have an idea. But this is pretty impressive. So yes, now moving on to water. Water sales, we're budgeting flat. We just haven't, we're seeing a trend to where we're seeing usage go down. So budgeting increase just didn't seem warranted. So we took a very conservative approach here. That's the big piece here, okay? Once again, personnel costs. What you'll see here is, once again, the admin person split 50-50 between sewer and water. So that is the increase here that this represents. Going through, like I said, just various costs that we're seeing up and down. items that were budgeted this year. So the way we do this is we go through, we see, get all the data that we can for the current fiscal year, and items that we think were going to happen that aren't happening, we budget them accordingly for the next year. And so I said for services, I said that number has just not been what we expected it to be. So that's coming down a little bit. Engineering, water quality engineering is not quite as high as we expected it to be. We're seeing a lot of that work happen on the capital side. So that's coming down. Collection and transmission, we're seeing the need for more meters and more transmitters. That's happening this year. So we're seeing that go up. So we're trying to capture that. Treatment, just the cost of overall chemicals, that is going up as well. So we're capturing this piece there. So once again, positive operations, this was surprising to me as far as the overall increase last year to this year, $228,000 positive operations. So that's great. Water system reliability charges, $1 million budgeted. The capital improvement program down about $150,000. Great. Connection fees, once again, budgeted flat based on historical levels. We're basically seeing that. Long-term debt, I don't know if I've ever highlighted this before, but and if I haven't, I'm sorry. But going through this process, the GO bond refi in 2020, late 2020, that saves $166,890 on an annual basis. And that's going to be for the next 10 years is when that's paid off. So I said, if I haven't mentioned that before, or we haven't talked about that, it's a big deal. Those are real savings to the ratepayers. So
congratulations on finding that too. So.
Yes. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. Really. So that's that piece. Like I said, so here, once again, water side, positive. It's a small number, but like I said, it's as close to a operational financing balanced budget as I've seen in a number of years. It's been the standard operating procedure to know that we're going to be utilizing reserve funds that weren't really there for water, but now with the water reliability charge coming in, we are staying ahead of our capital needs and having those funds available for those projects. So wonderful. Pages 3 through 8, we basically go through all the details. If you have any detailed question, please always just ask. I'm happy to answer anything on here. But these pages are all capital, are all operational. We represent, or we display all the accounts that we have activity for, show you the history and how we're tracking. Very, in my mind, transparent for as whatever we have, we're going to display. So this is our salary schedule set to go into effect as of July 1 with the adoption of the budget, 5% rate increase, 2.5 merit increases as we go down the steps. Okay. This next page here basically goes into our detail for how we calculate what our payroll costs are going to be, the whole number that is responsible for by the district. And you'll see here, part-time admin, we are budgeting $50,000, $25,000 to the water funds and $25,000 to the sewer fund. Part-time would either not be eligible for the 457 plan as well as PARS. So the responsibility of the district are going to be the other half of Medicare and Social Security, as well as workers' comp. So those are all being captured. But yes, this takes into account the COLA increase as well as a expected merit increase during the year. So we come pretty close to what the rate or to what the actual whole number is for the district. And this is how we do it. So like I said, this is the calculation that we have. Okay. We get into CIP, sewer, and then followed by water, but you can see the major projects that are anticipated. A lot of these are currently ongoing, but it's a 5-year plan because, as you guys all know, nothing happens in 1 year. It's all wonderful to think that way, but these things have always been moving around, and we do the best we can with, like I said, costs that are, through the roof, as well as, other areas of just getting people out here, labor. So all these issues go into presenting a 5-year plan. So basically we said, okay, these are our hit list. And over the years, this is what we're expecting. So sewer, and then followed by water. So once again, 5-year plan for these guys as well, developed by our engineers, Newt and SRT. Okay, then once again, get into our debt. We know what our debt service is going to be. We have the amortization schedule, so we capture in there both principal retirements as well as interest. We said, just the big part that came out was the GEO bonds. I said $160,000 of savings from the 2012 series. So that's really good. Now, coming into the discussion on reserves, this was a conversation that we had last week. So now we have our camp fund. It's in operation. It's been funded with excess funds that we had from last year, and they said they're there for utilization when the time is needed. We also have a water operating account, and those funds are not necessarily dedicated to reserves. But the last meeting that we had, we formulated the plan to actually fund the camp account with the water operating fund, or the water operating account reserves. The water operating account is held with Wells Fargo. There's no reason why we can't shift those funds to camp and possibly earn a little bit of interest. It's not much right now, as you guys all know, but something. So this is the big sentence change here. Conclusion. Currently, the district has sufficient operating water reserves for fiscal year 22-23. I highlight this because it's changing of 2 letters, but it's a big deal. It was always said insufficient. Now we're saying sufficient. So that's I wanted to highlight that to you guys. So, I mean, that's a really big deal. A lot of planning and work goes into that. So wanted to make that highlight for you guys. Sewer said same. We have the funds available for sewer. We have a minimum and a maximum, so we qualify under the minimum. It's good here, dedicated wise. But like I said, we have the funds available, and these funds are held in LAIF. Okay, capital and connection fees. We're getting there with water. We're getting there, but it'll take some time. So that's the big piece there. And then connection fees for sewer, we have those. And then the connection fee reserve is basically just the amount that we have budgeted. So 150 and 150. And that is it. Then we get into just basically our roll up legend of all the accounts and how they roll up to these 2 pages up front. A lot of detail condensed into something that I think is much more manageable for everybody. And it's really a helpful tool for the committee and Clemens and myself, and hopefully the board. So any questions?
I'd like to thank you for doing all this work. It's providing a very positive outlook on what we're doing here. I guess we're not going to vote on this today, but I just wanted to say this was really clear and very positive. So
thank you. A lot of that thanks should go to the gals downstairs. Tracy and Sonia are just they're top notch. They're so responsive for anything that I have questions on. And as I have questions, of course, things are going to come up and I don't quite know. I'm not there every day. So, to have those 2 just be so responsive is just that goes so far. So thanks to those guys, those ladies, I should say.
Well, thank you for sharing.
And to your point, sorry to cut you off, Scott, but no, that's a fair point in the way that I've thought about it. And Clemens and I have talked about it as well, as far as, is this too rosy? We've taken a number of different looks at it to say, well, are we not capturing what I think we all feel on a personal level? Are we not capturing that properly? But it's like when the numbers come out the way they have, and I said Clemens with his finger on the pulse of kind of the whole operation, and we can kick the question back at each other a number of different ways, and when we come back to the same place, it makes you feel better. At least I do. So, but yeah, no, that's a valid point that I've myself questioned as far as, well, is this going to depict reality? And it's we're doing this in May, and the process starts in February, March. And we won't look at these again until next July to see next, October, really, because it said we do the budget versus actual as compared to the audit. We've come back to that. And every time we do that presentation, it just always boggles me that we're so close. So I'm hoping that once again, we hit that mark, but I said, we just don't know. It's a budget. We do our best. But so many of these things are just so hard to tell right now.
I piggyback on Rick's comment. Whether it's too rosy or not, I guess if Greg were here, he might have a little bit of a different opinion, but we'll hold off on that opinion till later.
Well, I have a couple questions. And first I'll start with this board, and the history of Montara Water and Sanitary has been to always take the attitude that you can only spend a penny once, to quote Mr. Patasek, and we hold very tight to our pennies. And sometimes we have not spent money when we should have, and it has even come back to bite us. But I think we're on absolutely the right road right now. Two concerns. One is if the governor's order takes effect and our water sales go down 5% or 10%, what is that going to mean for this district? And the other is there was a letter to the editor in the Review today about a request for a grand jury investigation of Half Moon Bay's sewer funding. And I'm concerned about how we handle the SAM assets in our own budget. And so those are my two questions.
Good points.
Okay. So to answer the first one, a 10% decrease. So what we're going to see here, I said, if we were just to apply those numbers, 10 and 20%, 10% would more than likely, it's going to drop us overall into a negative. Okay. Operational wise, we're barely going to cover operations. We're going to be pulling from reserves if on a cash flow basis, we do not have the requisite funds to cover those operational expenses as they come up. So a lot of this has to do with timing. If funds are available, but yes, when we crunch the numbers after a year of operations, yes, and that does take place, we should experience a reduction in net position for the water fund.
Okay.
I'm just going to jump in real quick and just mention that the water sales number here are composed of the volumetric sale of the water, but also of the standby fees for the meter. Okay. So a 10% reduction is not going to result in a 10% reduction of that number. Is my point.
Right. That was why I used 5%. But my comment to this is, so our ever concerned about the cost of living in California state legislature is going to reduce the income to water and sewer districts, and at the same time take away supplementary useful funds that can be used to maintain and have been used to maintain the benefit of the sewer and water districts for the population at large, meaning that people are going to be looking at what they will consider to be a substantial increase in rates. And just saying, I don't think it's due to the districts. I think it comes from Sacramento. Now for the other one.
The other one is interesting. So Montara recognizes SAM as an asset in terms of the capacity rights available. Those are on our capital asset worksheet, and we hold it's about $2.7 million. Okay, we do not capture the outcome of how SAM performs on an annual basis as an increase or a decrease to our bottom line, which is differing from the other member agencies. If you guys were to look at their financials, they look at SAM's performance and they apply their ownership ratio and say, okay, Sam had a positive year, we had a positive year, our asset goes up. And in a negative year, their asset goes down. We do not capture it that way. We operate independently of how SAM operates. We fund SAM's operations and capital needs, but we do not capture their overall performance in our books.
Interesting.
I'm also going to jump in and just add to what Peter says. We had this discussion a number of times with our auditor, who was very keen on resolving this, and actually pretty much told us that the way we are looking at this is the way to go. And what I recall from the discussion is that essentially an asset is something that can be sold. The capacity rights are something that could be potentially sold. The plant cannot be sold. So our ownership in SAM, we cannot sell that, but the capacity rights we can. And that's why this is accounted as such. So we're pretty confident that this is the correct way, particularly if our auditor insists on this type of accounting.
And I'm confident. I'm okay. So a number of years ago, I was looking at the books of the member agency, and I saw what they were doing, and I thought to myself, "Hey, that's interesting." Kind of went out on a ledge there and booked the transaction myself. Kind of discussed it minimally, but it came up before. Actually, I didn't book it. We had talked about booking it, and then we went to the audit meeting, and that's when our former audit principal, AJ Major, said no, and then he basically described what Clement had just said. So like I said, that was neat to hear, because I said before then, that part had never really been discussed with me in detail. So that's a bit of history there as well.
Well, that's interesting. And since this is probably going to get more press and more play, it's nice to know that Montara is on solid ground in this respect.
Rick?
Yeah, I would just like to add a comment that in my impression, the state legislature looks at special districts as a revenue source. Their general feeling about special districts, especially the independent ones like we are, is you just raise your rates. What's the problem? You know, they're using us to supplement, other programs, unfunded mandates, because you can just raise your rates.
Right.
And I think that's disgusting. and possibly immoral and illegal. So I don't know what to do about it, but I just wanted to make that comment. So.
Well, if folks have comments who are watching this about our budget, we do have a place for comment on our website. We got a very nice comment from a ratepayer last week, but if people have questions about our budget and want the board to know about them too, please use that. It's a great way to communicate, and it helps us understand what your concerns are.
Can we go off screen share mode?
I can. I wasn't sure if there are any more questions that are
Okay.
regarding the budget. I want to be able to go to it.
Oh.
But yes.
So I have one more question. We're looking, it doesn't have to do with the numbers that are there. We're looking at a 40-year high in inflation, gas prices that are somewhere between $5 and $7 and going up. And availability of parts is a huge problem. Is there some way we can add in our bookkeeping how these kinds of costs impact our district and our ratepayers? It would be a whole new column. I'm not asking you to fiddle with anything that's there. That's not good. But for information, instead of guessing, I think it's important for us to be able to say, and I know Clemens is doing this now with the capital improvement stuff for Sam. He started a weekly sheet of where we are on the capital projects, what we've spent, and what was approved. And I think for the public, we need to be able to tell them that we're not wasting their money, that these are what the costs are that are going up. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned to somebody, it might have been here, it might have been at Sam, but we just had to buy a sheet of plywood and it was $75 for a single sheet. It was not gold or copper. And so if we had been budgeting for this last year, we would have said it would have been 35. So those are the kinds of things I think just for our little district, just for our little minds to be able to tell our folks. Because I talk to people about what's going on at ratepayers, and they're much more comfortable with what we're doing when they know we're keeping track. So thank you.
Is there any way we can look ahead and identify critical parts that may be a problem and order them now before inflation, even destroys those, or whether we can't even get them? Is there a way we can kind of hedge our bets on critical resources and critical parts to order them now? With, we know pumps wear out X number of years. Can we order spare parts now to hedge our bets against this inflation stuff?
I'm going to jump in because this is, I think, a pretty broad question with the idea of procuring as much now before
Hoarding.
Yeah, hoarding, exactly. So
warehousing.
There's essentially two sides to it. The first one is we are already hoarders, because a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with is not available anymore. So the way we usually handle this is, we buy 2 of whatever it is and have 1 sitting on the shelf.
Okay.
So we have pretty much of everything, a spare, and that is true for most pumps. Now, we saw recently that it's not true for all pumps, but it is true for most pumps that we have spares. But once that pump gets exchanged, that's when we're going to start rotate, because we need another spare on the shelf. And I mean, I hear your idea of, let's spend as much as we can now, because it's still cheap and there is still, it's still something available.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have been operating since quite some time under this
That's good.
mindset a little bit, and are always, there's only so much money that goes around.
I handle my refrigerator inventory the same way. So
Yep.
always have a spare.
Yeah, but I hear loud and clear what you're saying, and I'm all for it. If we can, find ways to buy things now,
Yep.
before prices go up and availability disappears, we should do it. Yes.
Good.
Okay, do we have any other comments or questions?
Oh, I just wanted to, I don't think we've talked about this. Just wanted to mention that we had Alex Handlers at the Finance Committee meeting, and the Finance Committee walked through with him a little bit, essentially the idea that we also discussed here at the board level, I think a couple of months ago or 3 months ago, essentially to bring the rates or the volumetric charges and the standby charges, at least have some inflationary increase. And we implemented the water system reliability charge, of course, 2 years ago, which was a significant cost increase to our customers. But I think at this point, the Finance Committee also recommended that we hold off on a rate increase, and we can look at this really at any time. So if we are seeing, that Catherine and Rick's fears are becoming true, and the cost, we're seeing that we are exceeding cost for the first time, I think that we can still take some action and look at a rate increase throughout the year. Let's say, for example, for January 1. So thank you. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay. Well, thank you all for the good presentation and the discussion. And I just want to, Peter, we kind of were talking at the same time. Thank you for your very specific compliments for Tracy and Sonia and their hard work. I'm glad to hear that. I don't know if our public gets to hear that very often, but to hear it from you is, well, I take you at your word, and I'm really glad you spoke up. Let's go on to reports. Sewer Authority Mako side.
Rick, you want to handle it? Hey, I'll look up the agenda.
Rick,
You're on mute.
I'm on mute? No, Rick's on mute.
No, I'm on mute. No, I just lost track of which meeting we're reporting on, and they're, what the hell?
I think for our viewing audience, our SAM reps are in so many meetings. The fact that somebody loses track just tells you that that's a lot of work, a lot of time.
I can say there was nothing. Oh, Jim, you called me about one of the items. At the last, I believe, Granada Community Services District, where they were discussing the budget, there were allegations made about Sam that, in my opinion, were went beyond inaccuracy. They went into pure untruths. And so there was a transcript made of that portion of their meeting.
Yeah.
So it could be, so the record could be corrected. And it's very important that the record was corrected, because the SAM budget and the SAM operations are under very close public scrutiny. And if these things are left standing, it is bad not only for the JPA agency, but it's bad for each of the member agencies, each of the member agency managers, and each of the member agency sets of board of directors, because we are then implicated in having a slush fund, is one of the phrases that was used. And I would recommend that people watch that portion of the SAM board meeting. It did clear things up quite a bit. Now I'm just going back through all the meetings that there've been. Finance committee budget statements, the May 9th meeting, which wasn't all that long ago. So I'll look at that agenda in a moment. But
what Catherine is talking about is Kishan made a formal presentation refuting everything Granada said. That's a very important presentation, and I would hope everybody goes and looks at it. So
if I think the point is, if false statements are made in public, then the corrections should be made in public also.
They were. So
absolutely, because these things hang around and people look at them years later and they take them as facts rather than just, as a matter of fact, at the GCSD meeting, these allegations were made as facts and they had to be refuted. And so it's always important to get both sides of the story. My internet is really slow. I apologize.
I'm curious, was there any particular, was there anything underlying the misunderstanding, like some particular misconception?
There were quite a few. Yeah, part of it, I will say, I believe the GCSD board members were speaking in simplified language.
mm-hmm.
So one of them used the word slush fund. I think what could have been said was unrestricted reserves.
Mm-hmm. So did it have to do with how budget monies were allocated during the course of the year?
It had to do with that, and what they were talking about was the third quarter state of the budget report. And so funds are not, a budget is as we have said here, it's a plan. It's
Mhm.
an estimate. And if things come up and you have to pay bills right now, you have a choice. The SAM manager has a choice. He can go through the process of going to the general managers and trying to get money and trying to do mid-year accounting changes from the member agencies. Or he can say, gee, I've got some money here for this project. I haven't used it yet. I'll move it over here and pay this bill. And then we can, because they're all in the capital budget, and we can, we will reconcile this.
Mhm. Yeah, this has been a long-running issue that, you know, rears its head every few years, where there's a, you know, when we approve the budget, some would use that as a way to say that any given project that was discussed in that budget was somehow pre-approved, and so they would try to skip the mid-year approval of a specific project that was responsive to things like quotes from a contractor. and so it was like, what we had said when we approved the budget was, we're prepared to set aside this kind of money for this particular kind of project. I think it's a pretty common thing to conflate the budget set aside from the specific need to spend. And Catherine, what you're saying is, if things come up and like a pump blows up or a generator fails and you got to fix it, you got to spend the money. You're going to take it from somewhere. And especially if it's essential to operation, I fully expect the general manager to exercise the general manager's discretion to allocate some money to pay for the urgent need. So I'm glad to hear that Keishan is prepared and willing to get in there and provide the detailed explanation. Rick?
So if people are interested, I believe you could ask Keishan for a copy of the notes from the GCSD meeting, but they only make sense when you then watch the presentation that Keishan made from Sam.
Well,
Yeah, I think that Kishan's main comment was, don't air your griefs on public TV. If you're going to bitch about something, call us. We've been certified, we've been audited, got awards. You know, there is nothing wrong with SAM Finances. All you have to do is call them and ask a question, and they will give you the answer. Don't sit there bitching on TV in public.
And then the corollary was when Kishan answered those false statements in public, the GSD members complained that Kishan didn't call them directly back. So Kishan did the right thing in responding in public to those public statements. So
this is all good. Let's just take the opportunity to bring it home, and let me know that Peter has said multiple times tonight, there's a lot of information in front of you. If you have any questions, please call. Our staff is very happy to field the questions. And I think it's really frustrating when people start with an accusation. It's actually great when people start with a question. Some of the questions get us to consider things that we may not have considered before. So please bring the questions. If it's on your mind and you're concerned about it, we welcome it. So thank you.
And the rest of the agenda is also good news. Sam is fixing things.
Good.
It's costing more. There was a request to ratify an emergency purchase order to Calcon for purchase of the temporary cable material for roughly $58,000. This was for the bus duct that failed in an exciting fashion. I believe on the agenda for Monday, it's up to about 90,000. I read it quickly, went, whoa, that's even more, but you can see that it is up much more. We are also doing a purchase order to purchase the mechanical bar screen and washer compactor, and that's $538,000. Now, I was in after the SAM board meeting and was talking to some of the longer term operators, and they were talking about how this thing, screens stuff and clears itself. They said not that long ago, decades, but still not that long ago, they had a person, an operator, pulling stuff out of the bar screen to keep it clean every couple times a day. And they were talking about, so all the change that got flushed down the toilet that we retrieved, we'd save it and we'd buy birthday cakes. They were talking about some of the things they found, rings. They found a ring from a high school graduation ring from somebody who had graduated like 60 years earlier, and they were able to get it back to him.
That's right.
So the change that they used to buy birthday cakes, now I think that you could call a slush fund.
That's a slush fund, exactly. So things are getting done and fixed at SAM.
Yep.
Tours are available. I recommend to Michelle, to anybody watching PCTV, to anyone, call, take a tour. The plant looks so much better and it's getting safer. It's getting much safer and much more reliable. And that's all good news. So that's the STEM report.
All right.
That was a long report.
That was a lot, but it's good material. Greg's already reported on Mid-Coast Council. I'm going to guess nobody has anything extra to throw in. If not, let's go to the CSDA report.
No meetings have occurred, but there's Josh Cosgrove is retiring. And so there's going to be an open special district slot. I've got a list of, if we want to go to LAFCO.
Oh.
I've got a list of upcoming things. They're going to do this City of East Palo Alto Sanitary District and West Bay Sanitary District is ongoing. Everybody wants to accuse the East Palo Alto Special District of shenanigans and overpaying things, but we're all restricted in what we can do. Then South San Francisco and Westboro Sanitary Water District are on the agenda for later this year. Broadmoor Police came back because it's right near Daly City. San Bruno and Millbrae will be mid to late. And then it goes on to, Foster City and San Mateo County Harbor District, which is going to be in late 23. These are budget years, so that's like before June. And they keep adding extra stuff. Like they're reattacking the Harbor District, they're reattacking Broadmoor. In my opinion, LAFCO does not like special districts, and they want to wipe us out. But there's nothing on the agenda for the next 3 years or so that has anything to do with the coast side other than the Harbor District. So
good.
We're good.
All right. All right, thank you, Rick. Attorney's report, Christine.
Yes, thank you, President Boyd. Good evening, everyone. I do have a brief report. There's two bills currently making their way through the state legislature right now pertaining to the teleconferencing requirements under the Brown Act. These bills are separate and apart from the emergency bill that allows us to currently hold our board meetings remotely during a declared state of emergency, excuse me. And these two bills would apply if they pass once a legislative body decides to return to in-person meetings. AB 1944 would allow a member to teleconference or attend virtually without posting a private address or being required to permit the public to attend that private location. And also under AB 1944, there would be no requirement that a quorum of the legislative body be present within the jurisdiction if a member wishes to appear remotely. Then there's AB 2449, which also allows legislative body members to attend meetings remotely without having to post a private address or allow the public to attend the meeting at that private address. However, under that bill, a quorum of the legislative body would need to be sitting within the district in person in order for one member to, or possibly two, because it would be two, to be permitted to attend remotely. So those both are going through the process now. The assembly, I think there may be some updates in the next few months, but I thought I would report on that.
Good.
All right.
I have no idea why they're insisting on doing this, because the public is more than welcome. In this day and age, sitting in a meeting in a room is absurd. And I'm not worried about anybody finding my residence. So it's.
You are one of a few, Rick.
I mean, I give out my address and nobody can find me. So it's.
Catherine, you have your hand up?
I do, for director's reports.
Okay. Well, let's go to director's reports. Catherine?
Good. I want to thank the board and Clemens. I went up to the legislative days in Sacramento. I will say, since we all have our new email address for a couple of years, maybe we should all get some new business cards that have our current email address on it, the district one.
Yep.
That said, there was a state legislative briefing. The big news, again, was this ERAF money. It's going to cost the Harbor District $2 million. Now, they don't count on, I don't think any well-financed district depends on ERAF money coming in. It's almost like winning the lotto, but it's not like it's wasted. It's not like it isn't used to benefit the public that pays those taxes. And this will be taking money from a district and doing something else with it when it should have been there to help the public. There was a group discussion with legislators and Capitol staff. The representatives of special districts from San Mateo County were me and the Harbor District.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Stone from Santa Cruz County sent his staff. Nobody from San Mateo County came to visit us. No one. They were all busy talking to, apparently there was a labor legislative meet and greet too. So the CSDA is expanding itself to Washington, D.C. and trying to get a definition of public works and special district in the federal financing. So in the final, the federal definitions, so that when there is a disaster and there is federal money available, special districts can make use of it. And at the legislative reception, everybody essentially, there's nothing new. I mean, the state's out, this special districts hang on by the skin of their teeth. And we provide, I finally figured out what it is. We provide the daily quality of life at a reasonable and transparent budget for people. I don't know. I was just looking at the LAFCO site today. There are more county-run special districts in San Mateo County than there are independent ones.
Yep.
There are 35 county-run special districts.
Yep.
21 independents. So anyway, it was useful to go to the details from all of this are going to be shifting and changing because it's the legislature and it's this time of year. I do think, and I will volunteer to do this. I think we need to start staying in touch with our legislators, both at a federal and a regional level, and rattling our tin cup on the bars so that we make noise, so at least we get some attention. Because this water thing and this ERAF thing, there's a lot of problems going on as I mentioned, this one shoreline project does not include special districts. Who's doing all the planning? Boy, am I on a horse? Yeah. Who's doing all the planning for sea level rise? It's the districts whose facilities are down low. And yet the cities are getting the money.
Yeah.
So I will sign off on that, but I think we do need to stay in touch, and I hate to say it, but now that Zoom is around, I'm willing to start attending some of these meetings and with Zoom and rattling the cages. Thank you.
All right.
Catherine, thank you for going over there and doing that for us at the Sacramento. I hope you're okay.
Well, that I got exposed to COVID twice there, so I'll let you know. But it was at a distance, and I wasn't sharing straws with anyone, so.
Texting would be good.
Texting is always good. Oh, there is a new, and I will be telling you about it. There is a new JPA for banking for special districts, and CSDA is going to be on the board with it. And as soon as I have more information, I will pass it on to the finance committee. It may be able to pay, it might give us another level of diversity. And it may be able to, and it will probably be able to pay the same as LAIF. Or, I mean, it's just the interest rates are almost, it's almost safer to put the money under Clemens's bed. For the interest rates that are getting paid.
Let's not do that. Let's go on to General Manager's report.
Nothing on top of the written report.
Okay. With that, anything to call out for future agendas? If not, we're going to recess. We're going to.
If we could get an update on Tanya's project, the big $2 million grant thing on the next agenda, that would be great.
So you're referring to Pillar Ridge, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I just,
sure.
Whatever we happen to know now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do that, but I'm afraid there's not much to report.
Okay.
Essentially, we were a little bit in a back and forward with Pillar Ridge over the staging area.
Okay.
But I'm glad we communicated that in advance before submitting the application. And so we submitted the application. That's the status.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to take a recess. We thank the public before we go. We've got a couple of things. One, I'm going to read off a list. Two, I'm going to thank the public for showing up. We love having you here. We're so grateful for an involved community. And remember, you don't have to just watch us recorded after the fact. You can join in live during the meeting. Again, if you have any questions, especially about things like budgets or ongoing projects or water outages, well, let me mention just one thing. If you're experiencing any kind of water situation that you don't understand that's very concerning, we have a number, 728-3545, and that number gets answered 24 hours a day. And please, if you need to, please call. It's okay. We'd rather you call than worry and wonder. So that's we've got people who are there to take that call. Sometimes we find out about things that way that we're really glad you called and let us know. Other times we have answers for what's going on and can help you figure out what's what. I'm going to read off some things, then we're going to go to Christine real quick, and then we're going to break for recess. We are going to convene in closed session. We're going to have a conference with legal counsel on existing litigation. Half Moon Bay sues its neighbors, and Sabrina Brennan sues Montara Water and Sanitary. We're going to talk about one potential case of anticipated litigation, another initiation of litigation, one potential case. Oh, I'm sorry. One of those was significant exposure to litigation, one potential case. One is initiation of litigation, one potential case. And then a conference with real property negotiators on the property 771 Rivera Road, Montara, California. And Christine.
Thank you. Yes, just I will make the statement, as I'm required by law, that Director Lohman will be recusing himself from the real property negotiation item due to a conflict of interest under Government Code 87100, and he will disengage from Zoom when we get to that item.
All right. And then if we take any action in closed session, we will report that out afterwards. With that, thank you to the public. Let's reconvene at 9 p.m. We're in recess.